Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about scraps, leftover yarns, leftover pieces of fiber. If you are a knitter, a crocheter, a weaver, a lover of fibers, you probably have a stash of leftover yarns and leftover fibers. So what should we do with all of this? The purpose of this video is really to give you some inspiration, to let your creativity start to flow and also use up your leftover yarns. So that's very exciting for me. I think that sometimes having limitations, such as, a little amount of yardage and a lot of different colors, not the same one, can spark some creativity. So limitations are not always a negative thing, right? Let's just start with patterns so I don't ramble endlessly. I want to start by saying that a lot of the patterns that we have in our library can be followed to use up your scraps. It all depends what your style is and what you like, of course. For me personally, I really like when I have like a very simple pattern, such as, I don't know, a stockinette top-down raglan t-shirt or sweater that is very simply constructed, then I can really use that as a white canvas to, paint basically a really colorful or like a very special looking t-shirt or sweater. Let me give you an example. The first pattern, two patterns that I want to kind of talk about are the Tolsta Tea by Rebecca Clow and the Me Oh My Tea by Park Williams. I think it's her surname. Yes. So these two patterns are knitted with DK yarns, and they're very simple looking garments. They're very staple garments, right? And they're constructed differently, but they're both very simple. And what they both give you is the opportunity, I would say, to add, elements in a very simple and creative way. The Tolsta Tea, especially by Rebecca Clow, I've seen so many versions. If you go to the hashtag on Instagram or Ravelry page, project page, you can find so many amazing inspirations. So many people have been knitting it, adding some eyelets, adding some lace work, adding some little stripes of color, adding some embroidered flowers. So these two patterns, and especially the Tolsta Tea, can be really white canvas for you to, just paint what you like. So if you have, for example, a main color, like one or two skeins, even just one of DK yarn, you could add some stripes or some very simple stranded color work as you knit this pattern. And you wouldn't necessarily need to be guided, right? Because they're already quite simple patterns, and once you understand the construction, you can add on some elements and you can use up maybe some bits of your scraps. And I'm sure many of you have knitted scrappy projects in the past, and you will in the future. So if you have any suggestions or anything to share about your experience, please comment down below so we can all learn from each other. And I think these two patterns are really wonderful. They can be very customizable. You can actually really let your creativity flow. I think that These two patterns are really nice, and they're knitted with DK way yarns. So if you have a lot of fingering way scraps, you can just hold them double. If you have lace way yarn, you can hold them triple. You can hold the lace way yarn with a DK way yarn, and you will have a very similar, gauge. Experiment. I think there are so many other staple looking garments and patterns that you can purchase. Petite Knit has so many, wonderful patterns that can be followed while using up your scraps. For example, I've shown this before, but I've just knitted a cardigan following a Petite Knit pattern, and this is the balloon cardigan, and it's such simple looking and simply constructed garment that I think you can add on a lot of different colors. And what I like about using up your scraps is that you can really sit down with your scraps and have a chat and really, see what colors go well together, trying to find some consistency if you like that. Otherwise, you can just throw all the colors together and create a very, very colorful garment. That's another pattern that I can recommend. Those patterns that I just mentioned, I think are really nice to use as white canvas, let's say. Okay, another pattern that I'm very, very excited to knit and use up all my scraps. I think I want to knit very many versions of this pattern. Is a pattern that was made specifically to use up scraps and leftover yarns. I'm talking about the Olympe sweater vest by Le Poule. It's genderless, you can knit it for so many different people, and you can also pick up stitches along the armholes and knit it with long sleeve or short sleeves and transform it into a cardigan. And I really love the fact that the button band has, at least in this specific sample, has one consistent color, so you can kind of bring the pattern back to some consistency, even if there is some chaos, because there are a lot of different colors. You can have one main color for the button band, and that creates a little bit of consistency, which I love. The pattern is made for worsted weight yarn, so you can hold together a lot of different yarn weights, fingering, lace, Aran way yarns, and really mix a lot of different colors, or just have 2 colors, 3 colors palette, and have it really, in a very simple muted color palette, or you can have different colors that really bring a lot of contrast. About the pattern, they say that it's worked back and forth from side to side on circular needles, and you first work the back, and then right front, then left front, and then you pick up stitches along the front edge to the work and do the double knitting button band. I really, really love this. I think that, if anything, this is the pattern that I'm the most excited to knit. It looks super nice, and then you can add some buttons, which is always really nice. Okay, now I'll give you 3 more patterns by the same designer, who's Stephen West. He has so many amazing patterns. They look so much fun to knit. And one of the patterns that I really like, that I will probably knit at some point, is the Garter Marler cardigan by Stephen West. And this is really made to be knitted with your scraps, basically, but you can also knit it with one consistent color, right? And that's the beauty about scrappy projects or scrappy patterns that you can always turn them into, you know, non-scrappy projects. What's the definition of that? Well, anyhow, so this specific pattern is knitted with DKW yarns, and he has lots of sizes. The samples that he knitted is so beautiful, and then there are over 288 projects. They're all so exciting. So love this, go and check it out. The Garter Marler sweater, which is the sweater version. The other one I mentioned is the cardigan version, so it's pretty much like the same. It has the same construction, but you knit it in the round instead of flat, right? So love that too. And then he has, I don't know how to pronounce this, pinguano, I have no idea how to pronounce this, but this pattern looks absolutely gorgeous. I'm so excited to knit this at some point. And this is knitted as well with a lot of different scraps in garter stitch, and is knitted with a 6.5 millimeter needles or 10.5 US needle size. It's gonna knit up quite fast, right? He writes, quote, "Penguono is a fun short-sleeved jacket during the day, but flip it upside down and it becomes a long dramatic coat for evening wear." I mean, I'm sold. What do you think about that? I love it. I really love it. I love that it will knit up quite fast because the needle size, the gauge. And if you check the project page, there are over 2,000 different projects, and I just am so inspired to knit this. And I think the construction is going to be also so exciting. There is some there is some seed stitch going on, there is some garter going on, there is I-cord. I mean, look at this baby. I'm just like in awe. I really love that pattern. Okay, another sweater which you can download for free is a sweater by Drops Design. So there is a little bit of controversy about Drop Design's patterns. They say that they kind of steal them from artists and knitwear designers without paying them. Yeah, Drops is not really the best ethical source of inspiration, but I'm still gonna give you this pattern suggestion because if you don't want to purchase a sweater, you can get this for free, so I think it's still really nice. And this is kind of like a summer looking or like a spring, like warm weather sweater. And it has this beautiful floral color work. And here you can really play with a lot of different colors in a way that looks really consistent, really like beautiful, like a little work of art, right? So it's not only about like stripes and like crazy colors thrown together, but it has some sort of consistency because of the floral color work. And this is knitted with needle size 5 millimeters or US 8 and is 17 stitches worked in stockinette stitch. So I really like this pattern. But yeah, if you're into kind of cottagecore looking sweaters, I think this looks really beautiful. This one, the Stripe Hype sweater by Veronica Lindeberg. I think this is also a wonderful sweater. It's a great stash busting project where you can use up scrap yarns or combine your favorite colors in just the way you want. I love that. So it's a quite quick project, and let me see more information. It uses DK yarns, and I've seen so many amazing versions. This looks so timeless and so versatile. You can dress it up or dress it down. Love it. Really love this this sweater. I think is one of those patterns that I will probably want to purchase and knit in so many different colors and have in my wardrobe. You can just, you know, play with the scraps that you have and add the stripes instead of following exactly the same color choices that she gives you. So that's another stripe sweater if you really want to follow a pattern. Okay, now let's go to shawls. I have 2 shawls to share with you today that you can check out if you want to use up your scraps. There is this wonderful, absolutely wonderful design called Lang Aire. Not sure, I'm sorry if my pronunciation is super bad. But this shawl is knitted with fingering way yarns, probably held together. The gauge is 17 stitches in garter stitch, and the suggested needle size is 5 millimeters or US 8. And here there are some, as you can see, there are so many different stripes, and you can really play with colors. You can find the color combination that you like in your stash and just knit an absolutely gorgeous shawl. And I love the construction of this shawl, so check it out. Love it. And I think there are so many also very simple looking shawls that can be, you know, modified, and you can add stripes, for example, to use up your yarn stash. There is another free pattern by Pearl Soho, and it's a shawl, no, it's a scarf, and it's looking very similar to the Sophie scarf by Petite Knit, which is another amazing stash buster. But I really like this pattern by Pearl Soho. Is free, so you can just download it for free and knit up a little scrappy scarf. It's called the collar tipped scarf. So it has this really nice tips of the scarf that have a different color, but you can knit it with so many different type of colors. And it's knitted with worsted way yarns, so you can hold fingering way yarns and lace way yarns together, double, triple, and you can actually, it doesn't really matter what yarn way you achieve as long as you know what you're doing. What am I saying? This is the gauge. The recommended gauge is 17 stitches in garter stitch. So I really like this. It looks like a very simple garter, cute scarf. I know that in this video I should mention scrappy granny square blankets, but I kind of feel a little bit overwhelmed. I checked a lot of different patterns and there are so many, so I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed. So I'm gonna quickly mention 2 scrappy or 3 scrappy blanket patterns. The first one is the pinwheel scrap blanket. If you want to create a granny square blanket, then there is this is a free pattern. It's the knitted patchwork recipe by Martine Ellis. It's a free pattern, and I think it recommends you to use fingering weight yarns, but if I will follow this, which at some point I will, because I really would love to have a granny square blanket, I think I'll go up needle size and I'll use DK weight yarns or fingering weight yarns held together, and I'll create like a big, scrappy granny square blanket. The needle size, the recommended needle size is 2.75, but I think I'll knit this. It doesn't really matter. It's a blanket, you don't need to have it in a specific size unless you want to, right? And I think I'll use needle size 5 millimeters or 4.5, something like that. And it's a free Ravelry download pattern, so go and check it out if you're interested in blankets. Okay, so I'm getting quite tired. I'm gonna wrap up this video. I want to mention the Pearl Soho website. They have so many amazing home accessories patterns. For example, the fair plus square dishcloth. You can create such wonderful home accessories by using all of your scraps, basically. So you probably don't even need to knit a super massive granny square blanket or socks or garments that you maybe won't even use. You can just knit some dishcloth or washcloth, like in this case. Or another one is the corner to corner washcloth, and the sunburst pot holder. I've knitted that and I love it. The world is your oyster. The sky is the limit when it comes to what you can do with your scraps. So the last thing that I want to say, just don't be afraid, be creative, try different things. And the worst thing that can happen is that you frog it. Or another thing that I've done in the past was to use up a lot of different leftovers and little bits of fibers and just stuff a pillowcase, and there I had a pillow full of scrap yarn, so I don't need to spend hours knitting with scraps that just give me anxiety. Because to be honest, sometimes we have little bits of yarns that we don't even want to work with anymore, and instead of throwing them away, we can just stuff toys and pillows. So that's another little suggestion. And the last thing that I want to introduce is a make-along. I want to make something together with you using up our scraps. So that's the only requirement, that you use some scraps, and tag me and use the hashtag scrapmegoodmakealong or mall. I can also create a Ravelry project page. I'll see what I can create on Ravelry if you want to share your work. And if you want to donate something for the winner of the Scrap Me Good Make Along, just contact me. I'll leave my email in the description box. I have some beautiful little creations that I've made, like buttons, and that I've received that I want to gift for this knit along. But if you have yarns that you want to share with us and with the winner, you can send it, and you can contact me. We still have a lot of time. There is until the end of October, so take your time. But if you want to join us, just participate, add photos on Ravelry or on Instagram, and I'll be watching. I think I'm gonna make the Olympe sweater by Le Pool sweater vest. That's something that I really would like to make. And if you want, you can take inspiration. You can knit a pattern from the Ravelry bundle that I linked in the description box. but you don't need to. You can knit anything, or crochet, or weave, or make anything with your scraps. So let's just use our scraps. And thank you so much. I feel quite exhausted. I don't know, I think it's the weather. The warmth really fries me up. So thank you so much for joining me today. Please let us know if you have more ideas. There's so much, I think there's so many beautiful inspirations, patterns, and little guidelines on what to do with your scraps. So let us know if you have knitted also with your scraps, and I'll see you next time. Bye.